Hey guys, how is everybody doing? I got done talking about my most disappointing movies of the year. So, today I'm going to be giving you my 10 most surprising movies of the year 2023. Now, when it's called surprising, now I'm not saying some of these movies are the best movies of the year, except for one in particular that is on my list that ended up being in my top 10 movies of the year. But they're more like movies that I had no expectations for. I thought these movies were going to be horrible, movies I just did not care to watch that I thought were going to be horrible, or movies I did not know anything about and I walked out pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed it. That is what surprising means. Some of these movies aren't the best of the year, some of these movies aren't some of the best movies ever made, but some of these movies were actually really well made movies and some really good movies. Some of these movies might not be on your most surprising movies of the year. Some of these movies might end up actually being some of your favorite movies of the year. So let me know in the comments below. And with that all out of the way, here's my top 10 most surprising movies of the year 2023. Coming in at number 10 is going to be Transformers and the Rise of the Beasts. Now, I grew up with Transformers. That was a franchise that I grew up watching when I was a kid. I loved the first movie especially. Those were some of the movies that I grew up watching to death, and also Age of Extinction, which I kind of like that movie in a way. I kind of defend that movie a little bit, mainly because of nostalgic. Well, when they announced this movie, I did not have faith in the film. I thought the Transformers movies, especially when you watch them once you get older, you're kind of like, wow, these movies are not good movies. Like, why did I like these movies when I was younger? And when they announced this movie, I did not have faith in the film whatsoever. I thought it was going to be horrible. I did not expect anything from the film. But this was before I watched Bumblebee, and at the time I had not seen Bumblebee before, so I did not know anything about the film. I saw a few trailers for the film, and I was like, that does not look like a very good movie. But I thought might as well give it a chance. I watched the Transformers movies again, and then I watched Bumblebee, and this movie is a sequel to Bumblebee. And after I watched Bumblebee, I kind of became more of a fan of the film because I was like, you know what, maybe Rise of the Beast won't be so bad, but at the same time, I was still cautious. And color me shocked how much I enjoyed this movie because I did not expect this movie to be anywhere as good as it was. But as a film in general, like as story wise, it's very generic and is not a good movie. As watching it as a just a movie, watching it as a Transformers movie, it's very good, and you can definitely tell that the filmmakers of this movie and director are fans of Transformers and of these characters. You can definitely tell. But I do not care for any of these main characters. I do not come to watch a Transformers movie for characters. That's why I do not like some of the older Transformers movies because they focus way too much on characters. This movie, when it comes to story and characters, it's nothing to write home about. But with it being with Autobots and Transformers and machines being the shit out of other machines, this movie definitely delivers that. And I would honestly want a sequel to this film. Coming in at number 9 is going to be the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Now, if you watched my top 10 best horror movies of the year for me, you knew that I am a big Five Nights at Freddy's fan, like almost every kid 10 years ago. I grew up with Five Nights at Freddy's. That was like the big thing my age, and that was like the number one thing to where anything Five Nights at Freddy's related, I would try and watch it, try to do it, try to play the games for myself, but being the little kid that I was scared to play it. But when I was younger, they actually announced this film, and younger me was like, "Oh, I'm so excited for that film." But years went by, nothing, no news, no nothing, and it wasn't until the beginning of 2023 we finally got the news that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie was going to come out. Look, I had no faith in this film whatsoever. I did not expect anything from this movie. I did not expect it to be really any good because how do you do a Five Nights at Freddy's movie when it's a security guard watching over a pizza place for 5 nights and trying to survive the night? How do you make a movie out of that? And when you think about it, it's like that's kind of stupid. I don't know what you're gonna do with that. But I was kind of surprised how much I actually enjoyed the film, and especially just like a Five Nights at Freddy's film itself, you can definitely tell that this movie was made for the fans. Now, kind of like with Transformers, this is not for your generic audience. This is not for movie critics or just horror fans. This is made for Five Nights at Freddy's fans. This is made for the fans that grew up with Five Nights at Freddy's. These are for people that absolutely love, cherish, and know every little theory about Five Nights at Freddy's, and you can definitely tell that in your film. Now, if you are just a guy that's just to watch a movie and you sit there and watch it, you are not going to like this movie whatsoever, and I guarantee you that. But if you have experience with the games, then you know that this movie is going to be good. And for someone who loves the games growing up, I like this movie. And if we do get a sequel to this film, I'm down for it because I really am interested to see where they'll go with this. Now, some of the characters I didn't really care for, like the whole plot story about like the main character trying to figure out what happened to his brother by his dreams. Kind of stupid. I didn't really care for it, and I knew where exactly it was going. The second they introduced that, where they give you like this whole story arc, is like, oh, my brother got kidnapped, and I've been trying to figure out who did it, and I was like, it's very clear who did it. Like, if you played the games, it's clearly who did it. Especially if you've never even played the games, it's very clear who did it. But Matthew Lillard, he's great in this movie. Like, what movie he not good in? You can definitely tell there was Scream references in this movie, which I really liked. But yeah, I was shocked how much I actually really enjoyed this movie to where I'm eager for a sequel. Number 8. This is a movie I did not have any faith in whatsoever. This is a movie I almost didn't even check out whatsoever. Blue Beetle, my favorite DC movie of the year, and almost became my number one movie of the, not movie of the year, comic book movie of the year. But then, other movies. And this was a movie I did not really have any interest in whatsoever. This was a movie that, when they announced the film, trailers didn't really sell me because it looked like a very, very generic story, which it does have a very generic story. Oh god, yes. This movie is very generic when it comes to its villain and story. But what saves this movie is its characters. These characters, like the family dynamic. Now, I never grew up in a Latino type family. I never grew up with around any. A lot of people like really understood the jokes when it came to this movie. It's like, oh, I understand that. Yeah, I went with that. Like actual like Latino, like the that culture, like really understood this movie and really enjoyed it. But as just someone watching the movie, I really enjoyed this movie. And what I absolutely loved about this movie, to where I talked about this when I did my comic book ranking, I hate how we live with society now that superhero movies have to be a a setup for 14 more movies, and it's like answering questions from the previous 14 movies. I hate how we live in them with comic book movies like that. But this movie was just a standalone comic book movie, just telling its own story. That is what I miss in comic book movies nowadays, and that they do have setups for this film, kind of, to where they talk about Batman in certain scenes and stuff like that. Like, they mention them, but they never actually show them. They don't show other heroes from the DCEU. This movie was just a standalone great superhero movie, and I'm having trouble with my nose lately, to where it was just a fun movie and I really enjoyed it. And if James Gunn does bring these characters and this like movie into the DCU, I would be very happy. Again, I had no faith in this film whatsoever. I even debated checking it out, but I'm so glad I did because it became one of the better movies of the year and one of my favorite comic book movies of the year. Number 7 is Missing. This is a movie I didn't really know anything about. This was a movie that I kind of checked out of curiosity. The only way I found out about this movie was because this was at like this was like towards the end of 2022 actually, where my mom sent me a TikTok and I was like, okay, what did she send me? And it was a list of movies coming out in the year 2023. There was a few films like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, Evil Dead Rise, The Exorcist Believer, like very generic films. But one that really caught my attention was a film called Missing, and it was about a story about a little girl's mom that goes missing, and then the whole movie she's trying to figure out where she is, and the whole movie is her trying to find her, what the hell happened to her. That intrigued me enough to where I was like, okay, get me a ticket. I'll try and check this movie out. I'll give this movie a shot. But what kind of worried me about the movie was that it's going to be told through like cameras, like phones, computers, like security cameras and stuff like that. That is how this movie is told through, kind of like a Paranormal Activity, where you only see through like webcams and cameras and stuff like that. That part of the movie scared me. But I went to go check this out, And oh my god, I did not expect this movie to be any good because what I was sitting there and the movie kept me guessing of who kidnapped the mother. This movie kept me guessing what was going to happen. There was like a few things here and there that I did not expect. I felt this movie was told brilliantly, if you ask me, because there's like certain points of the movie to where like through like webcams, like through my webcam right now, like it's told through like this. And I did not expect it to be as enjoyable as it was. Is the movie rewatchable? Yes, but is it hard to rewatch because of like the whole way that it's told through like through technology basically? Yes, I probably wouldn't rewatch the movie for that reason alone, but I do think it's one of the more unique films told like that. And apparently this movie was made by the same people who made Searching, and I didn't know about that movie until this movie came out, but I enjoyed this movie so much to where it got me to check out Searching, which I enjoyed that movie as well. Coming in at number six is a movie that was recently released, and that is Wonka. Now, I was actually really excited for this movie. What did worry me about the film, though, was that this was going to be a prequel. And I basically hate prequels. I do not like the thought of prequels. I've never really cared for them. Prequels are just giving me answers to a character or to a movie that about answers that I never asked for, and then they kind of end up kind of ruin the mystique of the story or the character itself. And it's like I did not ask for this, but what caught my attention was Paul Ring, the director of Paddington and Paddington 2, where are two of greatest movies ever made, if you ask me, was going to be directing this movie. And Timothy Chalamet, Chalamet, is that how you say it? Chalamet? I think Chalamet. Yeah, right. I don't know. I'm bad with names. And he was going to be playing Wonka, which I thought was a brilliant casting, especially after Dune, which was a great movie, and I loved him in that movie. And I tried to find almost every movie that guy's been in. When I found out he was being cast as Wonka and he was going to star as Wonka, oh yeah, you got my attention. But I did not expect the movie to be this fucking good. Like, this movie was really good to where it captures the heart of the original movie and captures the same kind of like the music of the original, which I'm not a fan of musicals whatsoever, but I love the original Willy Wonka because of its music too. And this movie does kind of captures the same type of music flavor of the original. And I honestly think if Gene Wilder was still alive, he would have given Timothy his blessing because what I like his performance as Wonka because he's mysterious and he's unpredictable like Gene Wilder's version of Wonka, like of Willy Wonka. I really enjoyed this movie. It was heartfelt. It's one of those movies that just makes you feel good. Like if you're ever in a bad mood, you could put this movie on and then you instantly just feel better. You feel joy again. You feel happy again. Like the characters were very likable. This movie was emotional at times. I thought the villains were okay, I guess, because, well, Paul Ring has never been the best when it comes to villains because they're very predictable and very generic, if you ask me. But I did like the whole story to where it was about like Slugsworth trying to get rid of Wonka. And remember when I said I don't like prequels? This movie does not feel like a prequel. It feels like its own standalone story. It feels like it's its own story to where it has elements to where it does feel like a prequel to the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It definitely feels like that. But this movie is different enough and to where it does its own things to where it could be its own standalone movie to where it could set up its own like six or five sequels. Number five is Talk to Me. Now, this was a movie I did not have a lot of interest in. I thought because A24 movies don't usually work for me. I'm not the biggest A24 fan, but I do like some of their movies like X, Pearl, Hereditary. Those are just the name. Those are probably the only ones I generally actually love. And when I heard that they were making another movie about some sort of like weird demon possession film, I was like, oh dear lord. Oh god, what are we doing here? I did not see any trailers for this movie. I only saw like little tiny bits of the trailer and I went, I'm probably not gonna watch this movie. I did not really want to watch this movie, but it wasn't until a few reviews came out saying, oh, this is one of the best horror movies of the year. This is one of the more unique horror films of the year. And I went, okay, I'll give it a shot. And wow, this movie was great. I really did love this movie to where I really loved it to where it was like one of like some of the reviews said. It is one of the more unique demon possession films. I cared about the characters. Some of the characters were generic though, but I did feel for them. I did like the whole like the whole story thing to where you can grab like this like hand that was like the hand of like a magician or something like that, which I thought was pretty cool. And you have to say what the title says, talk to me, and then a demon will show up, and then you have to say, I let you in, and then it like possesses you. Then you have like black eyes, and and that person starts talking, and it's using your body to move around and talk like that. And this movie also like gets on your nerves how weird it is, to where it's like really creepy in some ways, where it gets on your nerves. Like the one scene I always think about is like when the kid is on the ground and like when he's still possessed, like the little brother of this movie when he's possessed in this movie, and to where he's like hitting his head off the hospital why can't I think of the name? Wall? I can't even say a fucking wall anymore. Do I need to go to a hospital? God, no pun intended. Where he's hitting his head off the wall and he keeps mocking like his sister saying, "Stop!" And then he hits his head again. Like that was creepy to where I was like legit, oh stop it, I don't like it. Nightmares. I sound like a girl, don't I? But yeah, but I will admit this. Is this movie overrated a little bit? Is this movie praised to where people are cherishing this movie, like cherishing this horror movie as it's the next big movie of the year? Yes. I don't think it deserves that big of a praise, but I am proud of the filmmakers, and we are getting a sequel to this movie, and I'm interested. Coming in at number 4 is Saw X. Now, I'm a huge Saw fan. I love the Saw franchise ever since I was a kid, especially that first movie. I love that movie to death. And when I heard they announced this movie, and I was like, we're getting a 10th movie? Like, how many of these fucking movies can you guys make? Like, can we just pump the brakes? Like, I get it, it's like the next big thing in horror, but can we pump the brakes and just stop making these movies, please? But I saw that John Kramer was going to be in the movie again. It's like, well, why wouldn't he? Like, he wasn't in Spiral, sure, but that was like a reboot. And he's coming back. He's going to be the main character. And it's like, okay, I don't know how that's going to be making much of a difference. The movie's going to be set in Mexico. I don't care. This movie is going to be about him going to Mexico to get rid of his cancer, then find out he got tricked. I didn't care. But trailers came out. I said, okay, it looks like a Saw movie. It looks like it could be one of the better Saw movies, right? Meh. It's probably going to be a generic film. But holy shit, if you were to tell me that Saw X was going to be the best, if not closest to the best Saw movie of the franchise, I would have told you you're smoking crack, okay? And then I finally go watch this movie with my stepdad, and I was like, holy shit, was that one of the best Saw movies, and do I finally have faith in this franchise again? What the fuck did I just watch? And to where the more I thought about it, the more I started thinking about the movie, to where I started to like it more and more and more, to where I was like, holy shit, I love this movie. I want to see that again. And then I went to watch it in theaters one more time to see, it's like, did I watch the right movie or did I watch a different movie? And I watched it again, and I went, Saw is back. Saw is finally back. I was one of the many people out there just going, I don't care anymore. I don't care about Saw anymore. And I was like, this movie's probably going to be the same old shit that we've seen 9 fucking times at this point. But this movie does something different to where finally the writers understand John Kramer is the person that we're here for, and they finally make him the center stage. Now, I wasn't excited for that, but they utilize it perfectly to where they do something that Don't Breathe 2 got wrong, to where they make John Kramer the good guy in this movie. It's like, well, how do you make him? How do you make him the good guy? Like, how do you do that? To where you get more despicable people in Cecilia, who I love that character, but also fucking despise. To where she says that she's going to take cancer away from patients, but really she's just scamming them and taking their $10,000 basically. To where we hate that character, want to see her die, and we root for John Kramer. It's like, who in the fucking million years thought we would root for John Kramer? To where this is an issue I've had throughout the entire franchise of Saw, and that's John Kramer's like thing that I don't kill people, or I make them kill themselves. The decision is up to them. Bitch, some of these traps that you put them in makes them look like they're about to kill themselves, and it's your fault. And this movie actually plays with that and does a genius joke to where it's like, I don't kill people, it's up to you. And then like one of the doctors in the movie in the room, and he goes, are you fucking insane? To where I died laughing because of that. It's like, oh, yeah, and there's like darkly comedic moments, like especially when Cecilia like pulls like one of the dead corpse, and they need a rope, and just cuts out the girl's stomach and pulls out like her like intestines, which is gross, and then goes, "Now we have a rope." It's like, what the fuck? the I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed Saw X, to where I am very excited for Saw 11 for next year, and hopefully they keep going on this same track, and hopefully it doesn't hit any bumps on the end of on this road, because I'm liking where they're going with Saw right now. And at number three is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now, I grew up as a Turtles fan, like what kid hasn't? I was a huge Turtles fan growing up. I watched the 90s cartoon growing up. I watched the 90s movies growing up. I also sadly watched the Michael Bay movies growing up. And I was a huge Turtles fan. I was a Turtles fan for life, and I still am. And when they announced this film, I was like, okay, I guess we're getting it. Trailers did not really sold me. It just looked like a fun kids movie for. It just looked like a fun Ninja Turtles movie for kids. And I went and watched this movie at my local drive-in where I live, and I watched it and I went, "Holy shit! Is that now my favorite Ninja Turtles movie?" Where I enjoyed the shit out of this movie, to where it finally brought the teenage side of the Ninja Turtles, where well, I thought was a genius idea to bring actual teenagers to voice the Ninja Turtles, and it's like, why haven't we done this before? Like, what the fuck took you so long? And then you get Jackie Chan to voice the rat. What's the rat's name? I'm gonna get you get Jackie Chan to voice Splinter. I'm very sorry. I am a Ninja Turtles fan. I swear. I'm just having a brain fart today. You get Jackie Chan to voice Splinter just from the get go. I was like, perfect casting. I love him. But what also kept me cautious was that a villain named Superfly was gonna be in this movie, and he was gonna be the villain. I was like, who the fuck's Superfly? I want Shredder. But oh my god, I love Superfly. Ice Cube voices that motherfucker, and it's like, what did this movie not get right? Well, it did get a few things wrong. The main one that I just really had an issue with, and it's probably my only negative, is that they make some of the villains in this movie that should, like, villains in this universe that should be villains, but at the end of the movie they make them good guys. I don't really like that, and I'd rather see Bebop and Rocksteady be villains than actual good guys. But we are getting a sequel to this, and I'm wondering what they'll do with that. So I am interested to see what they'll do with that. But yeah, this is one of the biggest surprises of the year. This ended up being my favorite Ninja Turtles movie, and one of the best animated movies of the year. Uh, Number two is probably going to be a weird one, because I did not expect to watch this movie, and yeah, this might be weird. Number two is Paw Patrol, the Mighty movie. It was a Mighty movie? I don't know. The Paw Patrol's movie that came out this year. Um, I did not think I would watch this movie. I did not expect to watch this movie whatsoever. Um, I went to this movie as a joke. I'm gonna be completely honest. My friends and I, we're all weird. We're a weird group of friends. And one of my buddies like, dude, I'm so excited for the Paw Patrol movie. It's so funny to think about. And I'm like, we should go to that. And he's like, okay, I'll go to you. I'll go with it to you. With you. God, I can't speak. And I did not expect to watch this movie. I did not expect to like this movie. I was like, oh god, we're gonna watch a kids movie. Please kill me now. And when we went and watched it, I was like, how was that movie better than Expendables? Because we just watched Expendables at the time. It was like a month or like 2 weeks after it was like 2 weeks after we watched Expendables 4, me and my buddy went to. And we watched it and we were like, how's a Paw Patrol's better than an Expendables movie? I don't know. And of course, I grew up with Paw Patrol because I was in that age of kids era to where I grew up with Paw Patrol and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I was like, okay, maybe this capture my nostalgic. But surprisingly enough, this movie was actually really entertaining, to where there was enough for kids and the adults, because there was a few jokes for the adults there that kids won't really understand. And it was also just a really enjoyable movie. Excuse me. It was also just a really enjoyable animated movie, to where, since I grew up with Paw Patrol, it did capture some of that stuff. I had not seen the first Paw Patrol movie. Probably never will. But I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed this movie, and I kill me for saying this. I'm kind of eager to check out the third movie now, which I never thought I'd hear an older me say. But my number one, my most surprising movie of 2023 was the Little Mermaid remake. Now, I grew up with the original Little Mermaid. That is one of my favorite animated movies ever made, let alone one of my favorite movies ever made. And when I heard this remake was announced, I was the biggest hater on this film because I do not care for any of the live action remakes. The only one I kind of care about is the Aladdin one, but I still don't love that movie. I still think that movie is not great whatsoever. I think the movie's fine, I guess. But when I heard this movie was announced, I was the hugest hater on this film. I kept calling this movie out, saying this movie was going to be dog shit. I hated the idea of a Little Mermaid remake. I did not want to be part of this movie. But my mom and me, we were huge fans of the original Little Mermaid. But sadly, she lives 12 hours away from me, all the way over there in Washington. And I was like, "Hey, mom, you want to try to watch this movie at the same time in different areas?" And she's like, "Sure, I'll watch it with you." I watched the original Little Mermaid after like 3 years, and I was like, "Yeah, this movie's still great. I love the movie." And oh my god, I was so nervous to watch this movie. I was like, "Oh, it's probably gonna be dog shit." I sat there in the theater by myself because no one loves me. No one wanted to go with me. Anyways, as I was sitting there in the theater, I was like, am I actually liking this movie? Where there was a lot of controversy with this film about a black woman being Ariel in this movie, and it's like, why? Why do you guys hate that idea? Like, what's the difference? I guarantee you, if Ariel was black in the animated movie and got a white woman to play her in the remake, there would be a whole different conversation. I guarantee you that. That just shows how racist people are. But I should probably keep my mouth shut because I might get in trouble for saying all that. But when I heard all that controversy, I was like, dude, it just live with it. And when she was great in the lead role, by the way. I absolutely loved her. And to where it's one of those few occasions to where the remake is probably as good, but just a tiny bit better in some areas. For instance, in the original, I did not see the love story in the original film. I never felt that. I never felt that in the original film. But to me, they did a better job in this film because since the movie is 2 hours long. Why? But the 2 hours, like, that the reason it's 2 hours because they expand the Ariel relationship with him. To where I was like, I'm kind of glad this movie is 2 hours because they expanded that love story to where I actually felt the love there. That is something that the remake did great that the original movie did not do good in some areas. To where I was like, good job. To where I was actually glad the movie was 2 hours because they expanded that love story. And I was like, dude, this movie is actually great. And the music, it's great. But, I forget the girl's name, but the girl that voices the bird, I didn't like her. I'm not the biggest fan of her, anyways. And I was like, I don't like her. The person who voices the crab, I was pleasantly surprised by him too. I'm not a big fan of him whatsoever, really. I think he's an okay actor. He's an okay voice actor, but he was pretty good. He was pretty good in this film. But yeah, this was the by far the biggest surprise of the year. I expected to hate this film. I expected this to be one of the worst movies of the year for me. But somehow it became the biggest surprise of the year for me, and I might get in trouble for saying this. This might be my favorite live action remake of all the classic Disney movies. That is that. Oh my god, brain fart again. Well, that is it, everybody. That is my top 10 most surprising movies of the year 2023. Leave me your most surprising movies of the year 2023 in the comments below. And if you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.